So the winning square block is going to take two inputs. We've got a list of triples and then a letter. The important thing here is that the letter is going to be X or O. That letter belongs to the player who's trying to win. So you can see down here, if we put in X, then we're using winning square to find where X could win. If we put in O, then we're using that winning square block to find out where O can win. So you can kind of think of that letter as like whoever's playing, or whoever is trying to find the winning move. There are two things we need to check, because when we're looking at a triple, there's really two things that would signify a win. If there are exactly two of the player's letters, so whatever they input, and then exactly 0 of the opponent's letters. So if you picture that on the tic-tac-toe board, that would be, let's say the player is X. That would be 2 X's right here, and 0 O's, because there has to be a space for S. If a player was playing as an O, a win would be exactly 2 O's in a triple and exactly 0 X's. So what we're looking for is exactly 2 of whatever the player puts in as the input and exactly 0 of whatever the opponent's letter is. If there are no triples where you can win, which obviously might happen if it's the very beginning of the game or the very end of the game, then the block is just going to report false. But if it's true, as it says right here, if you can find a spot, it's going to report that spot where the win happens. And we're just going to have it report the first one. So if it happens that there's like 3 different places you could play to win, we'll just report the first one because it will be easier, and it doesn't really matter which one we choose. So you can see the 3 examples here. In this board, we would report 9, because the player playing as X could win by putting their X in the 9th square. Here we would report a 6, because the player playing as X could win by putting their X in the 6th square. And here we report false, because the player who's playing as O can't win by putting it in one spot. So that would return false. So I just want to show you what this method will look like. I'll give you kind of the basics. You're going to need an if-else, because we'll have to see, if there are no moves, we're going to report false. Otherwise, we'll figure out where that move is going to be. So in your if right here is where you're checking to see if there are no winning moves. And to do that, you're going to need to use, what's it called? Appearances. So appearances tells you how many times something appears, and the reason we wrote that is because now we can use it here to figure out how many times certain things appear. So in this first blue box right here, we want to just keep the items such that X or O wins. So we're going to look through the entire list of triples, and we're only going to keep the ones where the X or O player, so you, we're only going to keep those ones where you win. If we do all of that and we check the length of it and it ends up being 0, that means you don't win at all. There's no place for you to win, and so we report false. Then we come down to the else, and I showed you how to set up this for each loop. We're essentially doing the exact same thing here, except now we're looking through our list. So if it turns out that you do that whole, keep items such that X or O wins, and you end up with something that, or a list that's not empty, you're going to come down here and you're going to search through each item in that list. So it'll actually be the exact same thing you had up here. When you find a place where you can win, you check to see is the item a number, and if it is, you report that item. So inside these 2 blue boxes, they're going to be essentially the same thing. You're going to need to use the appearances block that you already made. It'll make your job a lot easier. And you'll also need to use the opponent block. And remember, that just takes X or O and changes it to the opposite of X or O. So use that opponent block to figure out what your opponent's letter is.